Hello there, thanks for joining me right here on the Midday Update. It is a Friday, the 20th of August, 2021. What a week it's been, and also to trace back and look at some of the biggest stories that trended this week. I'd like to bring in NORDIN ABDULLAH, my co-anchor on the Midday Update, especially on Fridays. We'd like to trace back on these big stories and make sense of what's happening in our country. NORDIN, it's a good day, of course, to see you as well, but a joyous day for many Malaysians because some trace of normalcy. 20th of August means some SOPs are being relaxed. We can go back to dining in, but we have to still be really aware of the dangers that lurk outside. NORDIN.
Exactly, Jessy. And it's an interesting move by Tan Sri Muhyiddin to allow it to happen. I think it's really, we've got to the point where how are we going to handle lives and livelihoods? And I think one of those key areas is this whole retail sector, the dining and the restaurant sector needs to be reinvigorated. But I think Tan Sri Noor Hisham said it's still dangerous. It's still dangerous. You still have to follow the SOPs. So there's a balance. We're going to see what happens in the coming days. Will numbers pick up? But my concern, of course, is there's a risk of getting COVID-19. But if businesses don't start, there's a 100% chance that they will go out of business. So business have to start, tick that box. We need to keep safe and follow the SOPs. We need to keep ticking that box every single day. And that's going to be how we're going to manage this crisis from now on in.
That's all. We'll break that down further, but let's look at what happened Monday this week. It started with a bang indeed. The Prime Minister had tendered his resignation. It did come as a bit of a surprise to many, although there was already some sort of, indication that this was going to happen from the previous weekend. So now the Prime Minister says that he will carry out duties of a caretaker Prime Minister to help our country. And this is at the request of His Majesty Yang di-Pertuan Agong. In the meantime, the Chief Secretary to the government has outlined the role of caretaker Prime Minister. So let's trace back. The only other time we've had a caretaker Prime Minister was back in 2020, NORDIN, for when less than a week Tun Mahathir did step into that role.
Exactly. And I think Malaysia is, from a crisis management perspective, I don't see a crisis here at all. And that's the good part of this news story is Malaysia has done it before. Everything went according to plan. The police knew what they were doing. The military knew what they were doing. His Royal Highness the Agong took control of the situation. And a new Prime Minister was appointed very quickly. But
I'm gonna jump in here. That was when we were in a non-COVID time, when there wasn't a global crisis, an economic crisis, and so on and so forth. Right now, we do not have a Prime Minister, although we do anticipate that an announcement will be made sometime today. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong is expected to name a new Prime Minister after the rulers meet. That meeting will happen around 2:30 p.m. today. So we do expect some updates there as well. But just sort of jogging back to that, at this point, no designated or appointed Prime Minister. We have a caretaker Prime Minister. We are rolling out the National Immunization Program. There's the National Recovery Plan. There's relaxation of SOPs today. Everyone's going to be, well, not everyone, but people who do need and want to go out will take that chance. And, when we compare that to a country like New Zealand, and I know it's a much smaller country, one case and the entire country has gone on lockdown, whereas we hit a record high yesterday with over 22,000 cases.
Exactly. New Zealand is New Zealand, Malaysia is Malaysia. Each crisis is different. And New Zealand has a very different social structure and a very different government structure in terms of helping people in the community. So Malaysia's business community can't survive under the current continued lockdown where they're not allowed to operate. And it's a question of resilience. And if we can't get them to operate quickly, it's going to be 100% guaranteed that they don't survive. So I think that's why Tan Sri Muhyiddin is caretaker Prime Minister. So there is still a Prime Minister, Jessy, and he is that Prime Minister, and he has all the roles and responsibilities. As such, has made the decision to deal with the crisis in this manner. Now, what we need to watch out for and what we need to monitor very carefully is when the new Prime Minister does take over, and will new ministers be appointed and different ministers be appointed, will there be a change in policy? Will there be a change in approach? Will there be a change in SOPs? So while we are, people might be able to enjoy lunch today at a restaurant, it may only be for a short period of time. So without saying go out and quickly enjoy it, what I'm saying is in a crisis, things are fluid. In a crisis, you need to make decisions sometimes on a daily basis. And if the current scenario is that we're back into this SOP, Jessy, then we need to be prepared to deal with the fallout in terms of numbers, because we're balancing, again, this continual discussion that we have around lives and livelihoods. And I think livelihoods is probably winning out at the moment.
Okay, right. So just to trace back again, in terms of crisis and crisis management, the IGP this week also did say that he's urging the members of the public to not be alarmed and speculate, as the police will ensure that the country's security remains their utmost priority, that it will remain at a safe level as well. So this is the assurance of the Chief Secretary and the IGP. In terms of, when you said earlier that, yes, we still have a Prime Minister, yes, we have a caretaker Prime Minister, and his role is mainly to function and to ensure that the administration of the country runs until a new government is formed. I'd just like to reiterate again, we do expect the Conference of the Rulers, comprising of the nation's 9 sultans, including the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. They will be meeting at 2:30 p.m. today. They're expected to announce the appointment of the country's new Prime Minister. NORDIN, as we look towards the new Prime Minister, there's a lot of talk, of course, on Twitter, and I'm sure you're also tracking many of these conversations that are happening online and offline. A unity government. This is what the people are calling for. What do you think are the challenges for the new Prime Minister at this point?
Well, I think one of the challenges is similar to what the challenges you're dealing with today is. Many people are working from home, and it's about getting the economy going, and I think that is going to be his biggest challenge when it comes to dealing with COVID-19. I think we all know where the chips have fallen. I think we all know where we are in terms of the amount of assets that the government has, the amount of assets that the private sector has, how much we can deal with in terms of numbers in the ICU, and that entire response to the health problem of COVID-19. Now we need to get the economic response to COVID-19 correct, because we are in a global battle, and part of that global battle is a global economic battle. So if Malaysia's economy doesn't move quickly, other countries in the region, other countries around the world have started to come out of the COVID-19 pandemic. You see footage of the football and of the rugby. The stadiums are full. Why? Because they've handled COVID-19 and they're moving into the next phase of their recovery, which is the economic recovery. And that's going to be the hardest part that the next Prime Minister has to deal with.
Right. So in the meantime, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong has expressed hope for an end of this political instability. He's saying end political turmoil. He says it's been going on for too long. It's affected the administration of the country during the current health and economic crisis as well. So he's literally put his foot down on that, because earlier this week as well, there was some rumors going around whether or not it is time to call for GE15. And so we know at this point of time, that will not be something that will happening. But it's interesting amidst all of this, Bursa Malaysia rebounded to open higher this morning. Mild buying interest we see on selected heavyweights, NORDIN. At 9 o'clock earlier this morning, the benchmark FTSE Bursa Malaysia rose 2.94 points. So, one would
don't miss
not
out
have
on the money.
Coming.
Don't miss out on the money. And I think this is the beautiful part about Malaysia's economy. A lot of the fundamentals are good. Yes, there's been a dip in investment coming into the country. Yes, there's been a very large drop in jobs and jobs numbers and a rise in unemployment. But the Malaysian economy will bounce back. Sectors like the tourism sector will bounce back very quickly. Sectors that are including and this is one thing that I like that MITI got right recently when they put out their SOPs. They talked about companies which are part of critical supply chains to the global market. And when you start thinking like that, you start realizing that Malaysia is a critical supplier of a lot of critical components in the medical sector, in the food sector, and all kinds of things. So when you start to think like that, your international partners know that you're thinking in a way that is mutually beneficial. So as long as we can keep the numbers down, if we can keep the hospitalization down, and that component of COVID-19, I believe the economic recovery will be very fast because Malaysians are very resilient people. They're very good at doing business and they're hardworking. So I'm not afraid about the economy. And I think once you clear this political turbulence that we're seeing right now, and you know, to be perfectly honest, I think a lot of Malaysians are excellent connoisseurs of political turbulence. You know, it's part of how Malaysians have been able to
That's an
enjoy
interesting description, I must say.
Yeah, because they're able to, their political maturity and the fact that there's political maturity, it just shows that they're able to deal with these political changes in a way that allows the politicians to get it sorted out, for His Royal Highness the Agong to get it sorted out, and then we get back to work. And I think that is one incredible sign of maturity that I can say that not all countries in the region are able to live up to. So we're not in a bad position in terms of this crisis. Now it's about getting the ship in the right direction and starting to put some fuel in the tank and pressing the accelerator button.
Okay, so as I take your point on that, let's first quickly look at Kuala Lumpur. So far, the Federal Territory of Kuala Lumpur has achieved herd immunity when the vaccination of its adult population against COVID-19 reached 85%. Of course, we know that this benchmark is also one we've set in the National Recovery Plan, but we've hit this mark here in the city centre in Kuala Lumpur. 50.2% of Malaysia's adult population across the country have been fully vaccinated, and our daily vaccination rate remains over 500,000 or 500,000 daily. So things are being ramped up. We say this every week as well, but of course on the back of many other things that are happening within the country. As mentioned earlier, yesterday we had another record high, over 22,000, close to 23,000 cases. Today we're opening up some sectors of the economy. Looking at the point or the fact that we are also the Southeast Asia's third largest economy, we've chalked up 1.5 million cumulative cases. What's this going to mean in terms of, in terms of crisis management or crisis handling to ensure that, things don't fly out the window, really, Nordin?
Exactly. I think this is our concern is the death rate and the ICU numbers. And that's, for me, the biggest concern that we need to deal with. So when we go back to what Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham said on Twitter, we are still dealing with an incredibly dangerous virus. The different variants that are rolling out, the different problems that we are facing are still there. Don't get excited and think, okay, we can let our guard down. And every week we say this, it's about SOPs, wear the mask, don't get close to people.
Right.
And if we can get that right, we will start to get other things right together with the vaccination process.
Absolutely. It's been 519 days to date when we first kickstarted the MCO, the entire full lockdown. But so, with the opening up of these 11 economic activities in terms of your saloons and barbershops and eateries and car wash places and so on and so forth, it does not, again, at this point, I must say, I wonder how we even did without all of this for so many months. But it does not mean at all that we're out of danger. As you've mentioned many times, it's about the SOP and to ensure that, we still remain vigilant and be resilient in terms of understanding how much we can take control of the situation. But the main point is that these sectors are opening up to regenerate the country's economy. And so it's a responsibility that I think we all hold, and it should not be a freedom which, could or can be abused.
Exactly, Jessy. And you used the right word there, responsibility. And this is about a cumulative responsibility. And again, we keep using this term. We need a community-based response to a community-based problem. And if there are individuals within the community who don't act responsibly, we need the police to deal with that quickly. We still need enforcement. We still need a social enforcement, that social contract. If you see people who aren't following the SOP, you've got to call them out. You know, we've seen some of those huge lines going into some of the vaccination centers a few weeks ago. And there was that amazing footage of that Malaysian gentleman who was saying, you know, people are dying spread out. And that's what it takes to step out on the edge. It's a difficult thing from a social perspective to put yourself out there, but you've got to call out these gaps in the community's response. And I think, again, you can't continue to rely just on the police. They've got plenty of work to do and they're doing a great job. But the best way to handle a crisis is from a community base and a community response, so that the individuals get the job done, not the government, not the enforcement agencies. It's everybody.
That's right. But for now, or especially for today, business owners or owners of business premises have been advised to adhere to the SOPs strictly as prescribed under the National Recovery Plan. This is to avoid the privileges granted to operate being withdrawn. And as you mentioned earlier as well, the health DG has come out. He's even tweeted this, and he's reiterated earlier in the week as well, saying that the country's COVID-19 figures remain at a worrying stage and must be controlled. So just let's all be aware of the dangers that still lurk out there, whereas we also are happy on another hand that, you know, we can resume to some form of normalcy. Let's not abuse it. If we could do it for months on end, we can hold out a little bit longer. Believe me, I do see that end coming soon, but it'll just take all of us to really, get our act together, including the authorities and the leaders and everyone else. On the back of that, the Education Minister has said that schools will reopen now October 3rd. There was a bit of a uproar earlier when they announced for it to be open in September, and teachers and parents were all not happy with that decision as well. And so now it will only reopen come August 3rd. NORDIN.
Yeah, I think this is a smart move. And I think, I'm definitely, I fully agree with this move. And we should be prepared also if they do need to extend that date again. Children are our most important asset, and we need to continue to protect them. If we need to continue to work from home, if sometimes our broadcast has some kids running in the background, or a Zoom meeting has kids running in the background, by all means, it's a lot easier to deal with that than the critical problems of clusters within schools. And I think that the research that we've seen and the research in terms of social media pushback on schools is very high and very conclusive. So, there are things that can go faster, there's things that can go slower. And just be prepared for a fluid situation in the next coming months, because we've still got a long way to go.
That's right. As you say that, and as people prepare to go off for dine-ins and so on and so forth, many people feel that they need a vacation. And so the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, they're saying that they will implement a tourism bubble approach in one of the country's major tourist destinations. That's besides, of course, Langkawi. That is, our go-to place. We can escapade. Everyone's missing the beach. We miss being in Kuala Town. So on and so forth. Yeah. But funnily enough, NORDIN, it looks like people have adapted to the new norm, or rather embraced it, because in a recent survey, Work Monitor, they conducted, this was the name of the survey, it was conducted by Human Resource Solution Agency, Randstad Malaysia. 69% of respondents in that survey were, of course, Malaysians, who indicated that they prefer to work from home until this entire thing has settled down, or rather until COVID-19 vaccine has been widely distributed. So people are saying, look, I don't want to go back to the office, not until all my co-workers are vaccinated.
Yeah, and again, our entire team works from home, and we've been working from home for a long time now. So I think a lot of innovation has taken place, a lot of acceptance of the new SOPs. And I think those companies who can work from home should be able to continue to do that. It will change the way the economy works, actually. We will see office space being less important, and people will reduce their office space. But at the same time, they will now need to expand the distance between desks and stuff like this because of the social reality now that COVID-19 has brought upon us. But there's also those companies whose factories and certain things you can't work from home. So it's going to be a blended response. And as we go along, there may be hurdles along the way, there may be problems along the way, but that's fine. As long as we continue to act and respect each other along the way, I think we'll get to the point where it's a safe solution, and everyone wants a safe solution. But again, we need a safe solution that drives productivity, because productivity is the way out of this problem. And I think that's where we're going to see the economic crisis dealt with through higher levels of productivity and higher levels of investment coming back into the country after we start to get some of these COVID numbers down.
That's right. Well, we do expect to hear something at about 4 or 5 p.m. later today. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong is expected to name a brand new prime minister after the rulers meet. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong Sultan Abdullah has said that he may be announcing the appointment of the country's new prime minister following the meeting with all the other royal rulers at 2:30 p.m. That will be taking place later today, and we will be keeping you updated once that news unfolds as well. Meantime, the Health DG has reiterated in a Twitter post that all those who have not been vaccinated to do so as soon as possible. Let's take a quick look at when we talk about the survey and working from home and adapting, embracing. So we've got to this point now, but never would have it been my guess that within the region, Singapore, China, and Hong Kong, Malaysia in this survey remained on top, because we have the most respondents saying that they prefer to work from home. But in bustling Singapore and China and Hong Kong, I thought that might have been an option, and Malaysians have obviously taken to this easily as well.
Well, it doesn't come as a surprise to me, Jessy, because one of the things that Malaysia also has is very high numbers of connectivity in social media. So actually, Malaysians love being connected, and they're able to be connected on social media in an effective and continuous way. So Malaysians actually are very well versed and very well geared up in that sense to work from home as much as possible. So it wouldn't surprise me that even through to next year and then even to the end of next year, that a massive amount of the workforce will continue to stay and work from home. So it's an interesting opportunity for businesses to replan their office space, replan their thinking, and also we're seeing an increase on the gig economy, and I think that's another mega trend that we're seeing here in Malaysia.
Okay, very quickly to take a look or snapshot internationally, tech giants Facebook and Google, they announced this week Apricot. This is a new subsea cable that will boost connectivity in the Asia Pacific region. You speak about connectivity and us here in Malaysia having access to that as well. But it seems that we've lost out on this opportunity. And in our national plan, we did aim to have the most submarine cable landings within the region by 2025. But we are missing out on this opportunity. I spoke to you earlier this week as well, but you did say that it is actually there is a silver lining around this. There is an opportunity within what we perceive as a missed opportunity.
Exactly, and I think with every crisis, this is the opportunity. The opportunity is to think about where is the silver lining to this crisis, and I think this is one of the things that Malaysian entrepreneurs, Malaysian businesses, and even Malaysian those employed by different corporations need to start to look at. Okay, yes, we're in a crisis. Yes, we've got this problem rolling out across the country, or that has impacted my industry. What is the solution? And what is the opportunity for us to grow faster and further than what we were thinking before this? And I think that's one thing that we can thank COVID-19 for doing is waking up to the fact that we need to be aggressively innovative and aggressively fast in responding to these crises so that we can be resilient for the future.
Okay, with not much time left on the clock, but many things to still share. What's trending on Twitter? Anwar Ibrahim, people are expressing their thoughts on why Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim should be our next Prime Minister. If you're interested, do check out what's happening there. From the police, there are many tweets regarding last night's mass arrest on COVID-19 memorial protest participants. That's been flooding Twitter as well. And vaccination, people are actually sharing how important it is for all of us to get vaccinated as soon as possible. I just wanted to mention here very quickly that later on, please excuse the noise from the background there, later on at 2 p.m., my colleague Jarat Ratnam will be speaking to our guest on The Nation, G.K. Ganesan. He's a lawyer, international arbitrator and author as well, and he will share his thoughts as to what is happening here in the country in terms of a caretaker government, and as we anticipate a new prime minister being announced very soon as well. Thank you very much, Nordin, for weighing in. It's obviously and always a pleasure speaking to you. And let's wait and see what happens in the week to come. It'll be pretty exciting. In the meantime, stay safe, take care, stay home. See you. Bye-bye.